I'm Teacher Jen. I will be your guide in accomplishing a lesson in creative nonfiction. This lesson will help you understand what a reader response critic is and how to write one. Join me then as we continue to expound our knowledge in critiquing. Prepare your pen, answer sheet, and let's get going.
Have you tried checking one of your friend's essay or written work? How did you do it? For this module, you should be able to write a simple reader response critique on a biographical or autobiographical narrative. Specifically, you are expected to: first, recall biographical or autobiographical narrative as a type of creative nonfiction text. Second, define reader response as an approach to writing a critique. Third, apply close reading in analyzing the creative nonfiction text. And lastly, you write your own critique on a biographical narrative using a reader response critique.
Now, let's test your knowledge about our topic. You read each statement carefully, and on your answer sheet, write T if the statement is true and F if it is false. You can do this for 5 minutes. Number 1. A critique is a type of academic writing that briefly summarizes and critically evaluates a work's strengths, weaknesses, relevance, value, and effectiveness. Number 2. A critique is a type of academic writing that expresses one's opinion about a text guided by a specific approach. Number 3. Writing a critique on a text focuses on pointing out its weaknesses and shortcomings. True or false? Number 4. A critique is a type of academic writing that expresses one's opinion about a text guided by a specific approach. Number 5. Annotating a text is a task done to help the reader notice details about the text and also to create questions about the text. Number 6. Why did the writer repeatedly mention this detail? Is a good example of a question one can ask while doing a close reading of a text. True or false? Number 7. In the reader response approach, the reader is needed to bring meaning to the text. Number 8. In writing a critique using a reader response approach, the writer has to defend his or her personal reaction to the text. Number 9. To support and explain my personal reaction to the text, I have to use quotes or details from the text itself. True or false? Number 10. I like this text because it talks about the special relationship a father has with his daughter, which is similar to my relationship with my father. Expresses a personal reaction to the text. Let's check your answers. The answers are: number 1, T, 2, T, 3, F, 4, T, 5, T, 6, T, 7, T, 8, T, 9, T, and number 10, T. Now, how's the result of your assessment? Don't worry if you did not get all of them correctly. We just started and I'm here to guide you in understanding our lesson.
Let us recall what biographical and autobiographical narratives are, of which both are non-fiction texts. A biography, profile, character sketch, and interview story are a form of biographical narrative. Autobiographical narratives count an autobiography, memoir, diary, and journal. Well, I guess you're all versed with this non-fictional genre. You may be talking about significant people in your social sciences subjects, so you're dealing with biographical narratives, right? Another is, if you're writing about yourself in your activities in most of your subjects, those are autobiographical narratives. Once again, read the statements. On your answer sheet, write C if the statement reflects a correct idea about writing a critique, and I if the idea is incorrect. Number 1. I can write a critique based on my own opinions only. Number 2. I can write my own opinion about a text without explaining its basis. Number 3. Those who write critiques are pessimist or negatively minded people. Number 4. A large part of my critique should focus on summarizing the text I am critiquing. And number 5. Writing a critique focuses on what is weak or bad in the text that I am analyzing. Let us see if you have answered correctly by going to the next part of the module. You have been probably required in your other subjects or classes to write a critique on something that you have read or watched. What did you usually write in these critiques? How did you organize your ideas? Were you confident of the critique that you have wrote? You may even have believed in those incorrect statements enumerated in the What's New activity. Writing a critique requires the constant application and refinement of our reading and critical thinking skills. To be able to write a good critique, we should first understand what a critique is, and we should develop the skill of close reading. Finally, we should know the approach we will use to write the critique. In this module, we are going to focus on the reader response approach in writing a critique on a biographical or autobiographical narrative. Let's go over these important ideas. What is a critique? A critique is a type of academic writing that briefly summarizes and critically evaluates our strengths, weaknesses, relevance, value, and effectiveness. To do this, you must look at the parts of a work and how these parts are connected, or how these parts are similar or different. When we write a critique, we are able to know the work better, understand it, and recognize its strengths and weaknesses. What is close reading? Close reading is an analytical reading of a text to get much information as you can so that you can form as many questions about the text. These questions will help you organize your thoughts as you write your critique. These questions are not just limited to what or who, but can also include asking why or how. How is close reading done? Observe facts and details about the text as you read by annotating it. Annotating a text means you underline or highlight important words or phrases that you think are significant. You can even write questions at the margins. Interpret your observations. From the facts, details, and questions that you have annotated on the text, what can you say? Did you find questions common among what you observed? Ask questions about the patterns you have noticed, especially how and why. What is the reader-response approach in writing a critique? In the reader-response approach, the reader is important to the meaning of the text because it is the reader who brings the text to life. When you write a critique using the reader-response approach, you examine, explain, and defend your personal reaction to the text. Since you are discussing your personal reaction to the text, there is no right or wrong response, but you should clearly explain and support your reaction. Through this approach, you are challenged to show how you connected with the text.
Our sample creative nonfiction text for this lesson is a literary journal. Let us now do a close reading of the text entitled Ang Beat, 90s Pink Power Rangers. We read with the author as she narrates her story.
Summer break had come again. After having lunch, Mama would send me off to bed, telling me that I could grow an inch taller if I took the siesta naps. If I couldn't sleep, she would turn on the radio and switch to AM station to listen to Domeng Mabalin Amin. It would lull me to sleep because I could hardly understand it. Usually, when I got up, it would be nearly 6 in the evening, and I would hear the song Heal the World, wafting through my sister's cassette tape. She never did like listening to Sarsarita ni Lola Angela. I would go to the living room, supposing I could watch another Power Rangers episode, but Marimar was already on, which my daddy and my brothers were wont of watching while playing chess. I would try to sneak out so daddy could not talk me out into playing chess with him. But it seemed I was one of the pawns that he easily spotted, walking through the back door. Come, watch and learn. Then I would have to draw closer to them to watch how he would carefully plan each action, contemplate any possible counter maneuvers, and double-check if he forgot any conceivable move. This was why Daddy was difficult to beat and so difficult to play. He would always think in the way that he would play, careful, deliberate, and precise. It always took a while to predict his moves. He would always make his moves like they were matters of great consequence. He would never force me to play with him, but he always loved to let me watch and learn. He would never hinder me from going to the mountains to battle with rocks and wild grasses, and always loved to make swords for me. But he would never allow me to read pulp fiction, as he preferred seeing me scribbling on my notebook. Yearly, summer days would just pass by swiftly because of unending chess games, sword fights, and notebook scribbles. The last time we sat down for another game of chess was in my high school years. Back then, I tried so hard to seek out every logical move from my mind while I was nibbling zoom zoom. At first, the battle went poorly for me. My forces were in retreat, and I had to sacrifice piece after piece to protect my king. Down went my bishop, down went my rook, and down went my queen. But I slowed the pace of the game and changed retreat to advance. I contemplated each move, and after a while I had his king surrounded. Then, in a surprise maneuver, his king took my knight. "Nice move, Daddy," I said with a sinister smile as I slid my rook forward. Checkmate. That was the very first time I conquered his king, and I could only imagine my joy as Daddy tousled my hair and commended me. That's it. It was not that easy to plot a maneuver against his king, especially if you have been guided by his principle. Deal with matters of great consequence. These days, I haven't embraced chess yet, nor any game that boggles the mind. However, winning against Daddy's king for the first time is a matter of great consequence. It made me understand his principle. That very moment, I surrounded his king with my henchmen. I knew he saw me as a knight, a ranger dressed in pink who is capable of dealing with matters of great consequence, but not necessarily chess.
Learners, how was your reading? For now, let's check your understanding of this text through the elements that are found in it. Number 1. Is Ambit 90s Pink Power Ranger a biographical or an autobiographical narrative? What makes you say so? If your answer is biographical narrative, then you are correct. It is a biographical narrative because the author is narrating her own story. Number 2. Are the events in this creative nonfiction text arranged chronologically? Yes, the details are arranged chronologically. In this text, the writer focuses on two characters, herself when she was a child and her father. What can we say about them based on how they were characterized? From the biographical narrative, we could say that Ambit is a playful young girl who loves to read pulp fiction and play with swords. She does not like chess that much. While her daddy is a thinker. He loves chess and wants his daughter to think of matters of consequence. Number 4. What point of view is used in this creative nonfiction text? Since the author is narrating her own story, the text is in the first-person point of view. Number 5. When and where did the events in this creative nonfiction text happen? Of course, it happened in the 1990s at the house of the author during her childhood. Alright, I hope you were able to follow and identify the elements found in this text as we have discussed. With that, let us summarize what you have learned by completing the statements. Number 1. A critique is a type of blank that briefly blank and critically blank a work's blank, weaknesses, relevance, value, and blank. Number 2. Close reading is a blank reading of a text to get as much blank as you can so that you can also form as many blank about the text. Number 3. When you write a critique using a reader response approach, you examine, explain, and blank your blank reaction to the text. Oh, we're almost done. I hope you're ready to write a reader response critique on the autobiographical narrative which we have read. To guide you, let's go over the following parts. So your reader response critique must have an introduction. In your introduction, you're going to mention the following: the title of the work, the author, a short summary of the text which may be 1 to 3 sentences, and your thesis statement which talks about your personal reaction to the text. Be reminded that the thesis statement is what you will be explaining in the body. Your reader response critique must have also a body. So, in the body, you think about your responses to the following questions. How did you feel about this work? Did you feel inspired or did you feel sad? Why did you feel this way? Did you like or dislike the text? What parts did you like or dislike? Why? Did you agree or disagree with the ideas presented by the author? What ideas were these? Why did you agree or disagree with the author? So you do not need to answer all the questions mentioned. You can choose only one question and then explain your responses to it. Select lines and details from the text to serve as a support to your responses. Your reader response critique must have also a conclusion. So for this part, you can write about the following. Your overall reaction to the text. Then, whether you would read something else like this in the future. Or, would you recommend this text to somebody else and why? Further, use the rubric shown as your guide in making your reader response critique. A copy of this rubric is also attached in your answer sheet for your reference.
Finally, we are almost at the edge of the road. Let us now assess your understanding of the lesson. For this activity, we will be collecting your answer sheets during the retrieval day. You are to write T if the statement is true and F if it is false. Number 1. A critique is a type of academic writing that briefly summarizes and critically evaluates a work's strengths, weaknesses, relevance, value, and effectiveness.
Number 2. A critique is a type of academic writing that expresses one's opinion about a text guided by a specific approach. True or false? Number 3. Writing a critique on a text focuses on pointing out its weaknesses and shortcomings. Number 4. Close reading is an analytical reading of a text to get as much information as you can so that you can form as many questions as you can also about the text. Number 5. Annotating a text is a task done to help the reader notice details about the text and also to create questions about the text. True or false? Number 6. Why did the writer repeatedly mention this detail? Is a good example of a question one can ask while doing a close reading of a text. Number 7. In the reader response approach, the reader is needed to bring meaning to the text. True or false? Number 8. In writing a critique using a reader response approach, the reader has to defend his or her personal reaction to the text. Number 9. To support and explain my personal reaction to the text, I have to use quotes or details from the text itself. True or false? Number 10. I like this text because it talks about the special relationship a father has with his daughter, which is similar to my relationship with my father. Expresses a personal reaction to the text.
Congratulations! You were able to complete all the activities. See you again on our next lesson.